What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I host the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And through that collaboration with those two great organizations, I've been able to reach out directly or indirectly to over 75,000 fathers around the world this year. Also, when I have some time, when I'm keeping the head shiny and the beard less gruffy, I am also the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative. It's a multimedia not-for-profit that promotes and amplifies the great things by Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. And we have another new friend on today. And you know the Dr. Vibe Show, we love bringing out new friends. And I forgot one thing. Remember, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Now, we're going to talk a little bit today about the Planet in Focus International Film Festival, specifically one film that's showing during this event. It's an online and in-person event that's happening from October 14th to October 24th. And it's Canada's largest environmental film festival and has a great lineup. But we're going to focus specifically on one of the films in the lineup. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get ready to show you a clip of what we're going to be sharing about today and sharing with one of the people behind this great project. So we're just going to get things going here, and here we go.
Bringing kids in this world is scary. I'm thinking about buying my boys a kayak, you know? Can you imagine somebody taking a kayak to a shop and go, that's stupid?
And I want to tell you just a report from these white climate crisis rooms, what they worry about. Straws, sea turtles, Black people. It's not a good order.
I went to Howard, so I made my decision and stuck to it, okay? I just want to brag, though. Howard had a swim team. Y'all might want to get on top of that.
I'm already crying. Then the police there. I'm calming down. Police walking. They too used to shoots, man. They walk me out to the car. They're like, hey, was it right here? I'm like, they still in the area. Why are you trying to get me to Takashi myself?
So I braid hair too. Anybody where the Black women at in here? I feel a little self-conscious for saying it and my hair not braided because people like, oh, you braid hair, do you?
A lot of beautiful Black women in here, nice hair, but you gotta watch those sea levels. If it get too high, everybody gonna have to go natural.
All right, we were just watching some stuff from a great film called Ain't Your Mama's Heat Wave. Now, check it out, family. We actually have Terence Muhammad, who is from the Hip-Hop Caucus team that's behind Ain't Your Mama's Heat Wave, with us today. And we already had, I'm sorry you didn't hear the conversation we had before we went live. Now, hopefully some of that will get out in the live. But you know what? I know that it's going to be a great conversation. So let's bring up to the Dr. Vibe Show stage for the first time, but not the last time, Terence Muhammad. How we doing, Terence?
Man, I am doing great, and I love how you said a blessing, highly favored. So hey, we are here in the building, so I'm excited.
I'm excited. You have impacted me even before we started our deep conversation here by some of the great things that you've shared. Family, we're going to go through numbers of things, some of Terence's journey, some of the movie journey, some of the Hip-Hop Caucus stuff. And they've been, some of the things that they've already done, family, you need to follow them. You really need to. I don't even care where you live. We're in a digital world, right? They are having global impact. So please listen, follow, support any way you can. But what we like to do for the first time a friend comes on the Dr. Vibe Show, can you share a little bit about you and your story?
You know, it's always funny to talk about myself in a way for whatever, interviews or whatever shows. But I guess I can I always start from 30 years ago. 1991, North Carolina A&T State University. I was a student, and I went, I was at a party. I used to always go to parties, and one of these parties, one of my boys said, "Man, come to this meeting." I said, "What meeting?" He said, "The History Club." And I didn't know what he was talking about. At that time, the History Club was the Afrocentric Black, uh, that's make it get it done organization who was fighting for mandatory Black studies at a Black college. And I started learning about myself, Egypt, Kemet, and then I met my mentor, Irvin Brisbane. And so he took me from the campus out into the community. So it wasn't just some intellectualizing on a college campus, but we actually utilized that and started to go into the community and address some of the issues that was going on in the community. Even at that time, police brutality, housing issues, education for our young children. We had a program called Dream Builders, working with young people, children, bringing them on campus and doing some tutorials. But then I actually then going back into the community and dealing with the issues that their parents may be dealing with in the community. So that part started me on this journey of activism, started me on a journey of being conscious and wanting actually to help our community and do the things that's necessary today to still fight and be on the front lines helping our communities.
Thanks for sharing that. Was activism in your family at all before you started being an activist yourself?
Not that I knew. Not that I knew of, because I didn't even know until a year later. I found out my father, he was from Anniston, Alabama. He dealt with some racial issues down there that I did not know about, in me growing up. Didn't hear from my mother. All I knew, we went to church. When I was growing up, that was, but it was not the activist. And the funny thing about asking that question, because a lot of times we have this glory or this glorious thinking about the civil rights movement that all Black people was in the civil rights movement, when really it was only about 10% of Black people in the community that was in the civil rights movement. Not everybody was in the civil rights movement. We fantasize that everybody loved Martin Luther King when everybody didn't, Black people. So a lot of us didn't come up with that. A lot of us didn't come into consciousness by watching TV or getting in from our schools or listening to the radio. So now we're more in the era where we have the digital and technology to learn about more things. So I'm blessed to, young people should be blessed that you're in the area where you can get that. But I got it when I got to campus, but not before.
When did your activism take a direction on focusing on the environment?
It took years before that happened. Years. But here's the funny thing about it. I grew up in the country, right? So growing up in the country, my father he's a general contractor. He made violins, he made antique furniture. So he had a shop in the back of his house. So I used to make my toys, and I grew up not knowing, if I was middle class, poor or whatever, but I remember the patches on my clothes. So when we talk about recycling and stuff, putting patches on your pants or recycling, you didn't throw those pants away, or the old shirt you rip, and those are the rags that you use. So, a lot of times we're in the climate change movement, we talk about recycling, but we have always, out of necessity in our community, recycled all that grease from the chicken that you fry, you put it in a little container and then use it again. So we've always done that. So I say it from that standpoint. And I always love to be out in the country and climbing in the trees. And, and I say that as far as the environment is that, a lot of people like, y'all into environmental things. I say, yeah, I grew up that way, but I didn't know it in the context of which we speak of it now. So how did I get involved? So I met Reverend Yearwood, president and founder of the Hip-Hop Caucus, in 2004. But in 2012, well, actually before that, 2011, we did this One Planet, One Voice, fighting poverty and pollution at the same time. And we did a 6-college tour in North Carolina, and I was working with, and I got kind of acclimated in that way. But in 2012, we were doing our Respect My Vote campaign, using hip hop and culture to get young people involved in the political process, getting registered to vote. It was a presidential election, and 2 Chainz was our spokesperson during that time. And I was going around on tours on the BET Black College Tour, doing voter registration. So all of like from May to November, I was on the road traveling, doing this, doing voter registration. And 2012 came to an end. And I thought, oh, well, I guess the job has ended. And Reverend Yearwood took me to a auditorium in DC called Do the Math Tour with a known person named Bill McKibben, formerly of 350.org.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And we're in this big auditorium, about 2,000-3,000 people. And I'm looking around, all these white people. And I'm like, why are we here? And I had no clue. And that was in November 2012. But then in 2013, I ended up in Nebraska at a state hearing against about the Keystone Pipeline. And I spoke out against the Keystone Pipeline in 2013. And I was talking about climate control at that time. I didn't even know it was climate change. So that was my first experience. And not only that, when I flew to Chicago to get to Nebraska, I flew into a flood in Chicago. Then they had a rerouting. Couldn't go to Nebraska. I had to go down to Kansas, stay in a hotel, in the airport, get a rental car to drive back up to Nebraska. And literally 30 minutes before I get to the destination, I drive into a blizzard, like a literal blizzard. So it's interesting that I'm going to speak against the Keystone Pipeline, and this was my exposure to climate change. But now I understand deeper that it's not about just about the polar bears and ice caps, but it is about the environmental injustice that have gone on in our community, particularly communities of color, where pipelines are put in our community, landfills are put in our community, power plants are put in our community, causing issues of asthma, causing issues of destructions, sea level, just a whole bunch of things in our community. But I didn't know about it. And being from North Carolina, I didn't know of the history at the time of Warrenton County, North Carolina, where the environmental justice movement started. And my brother, Dr. Ben Chavis, was a part of it. So I've been connected, but it's stuff all around us that we didn't even know. So we watching videos now, people getting shot by police brutality, but we're not seeing the environmental justice that is going on in our climate, whether it be air and water.
Well, like I was going to ask, did environment find you or did you find your environment? But after that story, you just say, since it found you, it was coming after you.
Right, literally.
Floods, storms. My goodness, brother, I'm glad you're alive.
And the funny part about it, like when you say that, it's like, yeah, literally, like it was a bad flood where flights were canceled in Chicago. And literally, I saw on my GPS on bad weather come out. Okay. But when I got there, like cars were in ditches. And then the next day, the sun came out and I flew a layover in Dallas. It was nice and sunny. But I'm like, flood, blizzard, sun. So it's strange. It was strange.
I want to step away from the environment from just a moment. And just, it sounds like your parents have meant a lot to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you're comfortable to share, what have they instilled in you to make the Black man that you are today?
Well, I think that question, sometimes we look at the core mother, father, and not even trying to be funny in the new wave of talking, but I have multiple mothers. I have multiple fathers.
Absolutely.
And so my father started me on a path, in the church, great foundation, some kind of, and my father was he is an entrepreneur. Well, he's self-employed, general contractor, does what he does, and he works hard. He gets up, he used to make us, I know how to cook breakfast to this day because he used to make us cook breakfast on Sunday before we go to church. I know about getting up on Saturday. Why? You just need to get up and and getting out there. So, he instilled that in me. My parents eventually divorced, but I think, the dynamics of that actually shifted some of me. So I think me running into other men in my life also helped my development because when they left, that kind of took away maybe the rest of that year. So other men came in my life that were very significant, as I said, my mentor, that helped push me and bring me into who I am now. Because my mentor, he used to, why don't y'all speak? We was at different rallies or school board meetings or city council meetings. Y'all ain't saying nothing. So now I'm talking all the time, but at one time I hadn't developed to that level. Or, you know, there's different mothers. Black women have always been mothers, regardless if you or their biological sons, that have come into my life and mothered me and nurtured me and helped me, saw the good in me and guided me on different paths. So that question, you know, it's like, there are personal stories of the mother, father, biological, but I have so many stories of other mothers that are in my life, still in my life, that I hold dear, mothers and fathers that I hold dear, that can actually claim me, and they can always call me at a drop of a dime.
Wonderful. I want to transition to talk about the Hip-Hop Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
How did that start? What is it all about? Was the environment part of the early days, or was it something that became part of it?
Well, so our president and founder, Reverend Yearwood, he's from Louisiana, and of course he, you know, his family. He lives in the D.C. area now, but his family is from Louisiana. But he's originally from Trinidad. His parents, you know, from Trinidad. And so I say the New Orleans piece because that's connected to Hurricane Katrina. But before that, you know, he was the political director for the Hip Hop Summit Action Network. And with that, with the Hip Hop Summit Action Network, he worked with Russell Simmons, he worked with Ben Chavis, and he worked with Diddy on the Vote or Die campaign, the Citizen Change. So he worked in those capacities. But 9/11, 2004, we met at Howard University because we couldn't get a space at the Congressional Black Caucus. But we knew the power of hip hop, and he understood the power of hip hop and wanted to use the power of hip hop to get young people between the ages of 14 to 40 involved in the political process that helped change and shape their reality. So, you know, when Reverend Yearwood, you know, was starting, you know, we did some campaigns, Make Hip Hop Not War. We had some campaigns, Green the Block. When we did had a meeting at the White House, on the lawn of the White House. So we've done a whole lot of things. So it's always been, it hasn't been of the one particular issue, because we deal in the area of strengthening democracy through our Respect My Vote campaign. We deal in the areas of social justice and civil rights, working with the Urban League, working with the NAACP, working with National Action Network, you know, Al Sharpton and his organization. And then we do a lot of work around climate change and environmental justice. So we've been doing this during the period of the 17 years that the caucus has been around. Like I said, it's formed in 2004. So we have been multi-issue against the death penalty, dealing with global rights, human rights. So, you know, the Hip Hop Caucus has had its hands in a lot of different spaces. But as we usually frame, we always say hip is to inform, hop is to move, and caucus is together. So we're trying to educate our people on the issues and also help them bring us issues that are concerns for them in their own communities. But then we want you not to just bring the issues and talk about the issues, but how do we move into an action around this, but then move together as a collective unit and a collective body, that we can move with this knowledge to action to change policy. That's what we ultimately want to do, because we always say demonstration without legislation leads to frustration. We're not in a moment, we're in a movement. So a movement takes steps to change the policies that directly affect our community.
Let me ask, especially when it comes to Black Americans, what has their level of awareness pre-pandemic versus now in regards to the environment?
Everything that was that people didn't know, they know now. And what do I mean by that? In COVID, we saw food disparities before COVID, but it was widely known now, because we're like, how do we get food? How do we get access to nourishing and healthy food to build our immune? If you live in this neighborhood where there's a food desert, now you're stuck in the house, you can't go out now. How do you get access to this food? And you saw that. We saw the medical institution of how many beds do we really have in America to deal with sick people? or what is the availability to get access to healthcare in this system, or what was the things? Wash your hands, wear your mask, and stay 6 feet away, right? But in Michigan, you talking about wash your hands, but you turn it off water, or
Yeah.
you're not restoring water. So pre-COVID or during COVID, it actually exposed all of the disparities, all of the different disparities that we see. And the worst thing about COVID is that even while we're dealing with a health crisis, we also were dealing with the deaths and killings as today starts the trial of Ahmaud Arbery in
Yes.
Brunswick, Georgia. So we saw that going on, but then we left Ahmaud Arbery and went to Breonna Taylor to lift her up as we should. But then, boom, George Floyd happened. So it's like we can't even deal with one death, then another death. And so we're watching this around with COVID. Not only are we seeing people dying because of COVID, but we're also still seeing all of the disparities that have been out there just amplified because we're actually now taking time to pay attention. Sadly, we say, well, I want to go back to where it used to be. No, we can't go back to where it used to be. But the funny thing about it is interesting also that, wow, y'all found a lot of money to help people out. So where did all this money to give, but at the same time, people are wrangling in congressional office. We see how like y'all getting y'all checks, y'all getting y'all money, and y'all are arguing, debating on when we can get money to feed our children, to clothe ourselves. We also learn about domestic violence. Domestic violence has always been there, or child abuse has always been there, but we're seeing it more. Why? Because now people are stuck at the house. They can't get out, or children can't get to school to get their free meals or get meals at school, and they don't have any. So COVID exposed a lot of the real issues that we know, or even the issue of mental health. And how do you sustain your mind during these trials and these tribulations of times that we're living in? So COVID actually exposed our ability to deal with situations when it was coming.
Wow. There's lots of stuff here. With I'm going to give you a term and I want you to define it for us. Environmental racism.
So the question is, what is racism? And from the institutional side. And so when you see environmental racism, it is not like, I don't like you, I don't like you. What are the policies? What are the things that are done in particular communities that affected them and damage them? So environmental racism is saying you don't want landfill in your neighborhood, but you put a landfill and dumping it in ours, and which causes cancer. You don't want power plants and and the pollution of the stacks in your community, but you put them in our community, and we see the results of asthma. You don't want pipelines in your community, but you see us as the path of least resistance, so you put pipelines in our community. That's environmental injustice. Or you want to dump waste with the stench in our community. So, we have watched Eric Garner get choked out in New York and just choked out life out of him, and he dies. But we didn't see the death of his daughter, Erica Garner, when she got choked out by the poor air quality in Staten Island and the poor air quality in New York, where it caused her to have an asthma attack, then a heart attack, into a coma, and eventual death. So we don't see all that. So we don't see the silent killer. So we should be watching the videotapes of us getting killed. But, the sad reality is we saw the video of Rodney King. We watched that. And we saw them get off. And we're watching more and more of our people get killed and get off. So when we talk about environment, the other thing about environment is not just the air and the water, but what environment, what is the climate and the state of Black America, where Black life is not honored, is not respected, where you can kill at will, you can put your foot on my neck and nothing happens. Or you can throw a little Black girl down in a bathing suit at a party and text and just throw her down on the ground. How is that? Instead of going through Bismarck with a pipeline, you want to take the Dakota Access Pipeline to Stand the Rock into indigenous communities. Or you was in the Bahia Pipeline down in Memphis, you want to take it down into a Black community in Memphis, Tennessee, which we halted that, but we got to keep making sure it doesn't come back up. And then on top of that, racism also produces strong and crazy capitalism. So the reality is
Yes.
that, you know, you are trying to get rich off of dirty fossil fuel, when fossil fuel is just that we need to get, you know, divest from fossil fuel, get away with it. There's a lot more in renewable energy, you know, clean air, you know, wind, just whole different things of renewable energy that we can get into instead of fossil fuel and getting off the coal. But because of racism, racism was based off capitalism and money, and I want more, more, more. I don't care if you die from it. I just need more. So when we see environmental racism, people of color, the BIPOC, as we know, Black, Indigenous people of color, and those communities are hit hardest and the worst. So we stand with our brothers and sisters that are Indigenous or Latino, because their communities are also affected, as the Black community has always been hit the worst. We have not been hit since we landed here on these shores.
Before we start talking about the movie, before we came on live, you've been to Flint.
Yes.
Tell me your experience or experiences in Flint and share it with our audience. And for those who don't know, look up Flint, Michigan water crisis outside of here, and this will add additional context to what Terence is going to be sharing with us.
Yeah, so the Hip-Hop Caucus, you know, we, like I said, we do work all over the country, like literally all over the world. We went to Flint, and we actually took some artists, a Grammy Award winning producer, Malik Youssef, hip hop artist Vic Mensa from Chicago, both of them from Chicago. And we gone to Flint. And we went there, met with Pastor Hawkins, Prince of Peace Church, April Hawkins, and they gave us a tour of the city and what was going on. Flint is a beautiful city, and it's a resilient city because people are still living, still going on about their day and their way. But then to just know and see how the water was tested, and you have to get test kits. There's a sister that we worked with named Yanaja Halon. We did Hip Hop for Flint, where we raised money to get water purifiers for the community, to actually put them in their homes to help with that process. But it's very interesting that the issue of Flint, which we saw was a travesty, and Flint still doesn't have clean drinking water. We haven't seen like no big news report. Yeah, we haven't seen no big news report. I know of last year, it was like this year we still have not seen like this big news report. Like we changed all the pipes. Flint is so good and so wonderful. And the sad part about it is Flint is not the worst city in America, but Flint got the news. But there are other cities throughout America that have worse. They have lead, you know, in their pipelines. Or, you know, when you think about, you know, voting, you say, well, we voted, but they brought in an emergency manager that switched everything over, and have that dirty water. So it's a lot with it, but people are fighting back. People are making sure that they get, Jaden Smith, you know, brought his water company to Detroit and brought some, not into Flint, and brought some water there and to help. So there was a lot of people that was helping with that effort. But the Hip Hop Caucus did go on the ground, listen to some of the stories, made sure we brought water, made a petition against Governor Snyder. We was there when President Obama at the time came to Flint to hear his words and what he was going to do when he was at Flint. So that was, you know, that's a lot. The thing about the Hip Hop Caucus is we don't run in when the cameras are all there. We wait. You know, we'll be there at the beginning, but we also still there. We haven't left there until the problem actually gets resolved. So we're after the cameras leave, you know, because that's what happened. People love to go into the moment. Yes, this is, but then when that moment is gone, like I said, Ahmaud Arbery's case starts today, but we were talking about it over a year ago. So we have to stay helping. And the reality, we may not live in that city, but we can give support to those that are on the ground to help with their own personal issues.
Thank you for giving some background on that. I really appreciate that, because to hear that, you know, and Ryan Knight is going, oh, wow, that Flint still doesn't have clean water is just, that's crazy. That's crazy. I want to talk about the movie.
Yes.
Can you give us a little background on how it came about? Because, I've got information here about it, but I want to hear your involvement, the organization. Well, it's a stand-up comedy special from the front lines of the climate crisis. Just there in itself is a strong statement. So give us how it came about, and just if you can take us along that journey.
So the Hip-Hop Caucus, we have so many great people that work in there. Of course, like I said, our president, Reverend Yearwood. And then we have a great executive director, Liz Hasted. And, I'm always, we have different staff in there and different things or issues that we're always working on. But one of the things that happened is, as I said, Reverend Yearwood is from Louisiana. And one of the things that we have continued to do is help with one of our organizers named Seth 45, continues to have commemorations in New Orleans about Hurricane Katrina. We're still there. We had a major event at the 10th anniversary. We had a major event the 15th anniversary, but we've always had something going on where we met at the levees at a ceremony, did a second line, and then had a big festival at the end of it. So we've always been involved in that. So Reverend Yearwood saying that if there was someone else or somewhere else that he can go that is like Hurricane or New Orleans, where he can warn this city and to let them know, where would that be? And we found Norfolk, and we found the Hampton Roads area. Hampton Roads area is on the front line of the climate crisis. Hampton Roads is a region where, they're under the threat of sea level rising. They have the largest Navy base in the world. And Norfolk is below sea level right now, and it is sinking. So we wanted to address what was going on there. So, yeah.
It's literally sinking.
Yes. And there's a whole documentary that we're working on outside of Ain't Your Mama Heat Wave to tell this narrative, to tell this story. And there's some history that there are cities, when we talk about environmental racism, there were literal cities in the United States that were flooded. Black community that was flooded on purpose. Literally flooded on purpose. Wow. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. You're setting yourself for about 3 or 4 more. We said that beforehand. But go on your road. Go on the journey now.
So with that, there was a group called the Creative Lab for bringing millennial writers, creatives, comedians to how hip hop. The Hip-Hop Caucus is not just using the same statistical data, which we do use, but how do we tell the story? Chuck D said hip hop is the CNN of the community, right? As everybody now love Versus the other night, they had KRS-One, the teacher, and Big Daddy Kane. And KRS-One said edutainment, right? So how do we use culture? Because we need culture to get inspired, to bring life and joy into people about serious issues. So we know that hip hop is the largest genre of music in the world. And so we're using this avenue of culture to how can we talk about climate change? How can we talk about it where people will enjoy it? And how can we give joy to people that's really dealing with a real serious crisis? So birth Ain't Your Mama Heat Wave. So we knew the city that we wanted to go into. We knew we worked with the writers to write this script and this story. But then we had to say, where do we want to go in Norfolk? Where do we want to do this? So we had to start working. And this was 2019, 2018. But 2019, I landed in Norfolk and like, hey, where do I go? Where should we go? And we landed on a place called the Addicts Theater. The Addicts Theater was 100 years old. The Addicts was the Apollo of the South. The Apollo Theater of the South. As they say, the Chitlin Circle. Everybody was coming to the Addicts. And so that was like, that's the perfect spot. And not only was it the perfect spot because of the historical part of Addicts, but it was also in the St. Paul's district. St. Paul is where the Black community, housing community is. And so you right there where it would get hit the hardest and the worst. So that's where we went. And then we connected with people like Mama D, who have an organization, Teens with a Purpose, that work with young people, which we do. We work with young people. But here's the kind of eerie kind of part of this. When Reverend Ewell was working down in New Orleans, there was a sister, rest her soul, Mama D, a sister with Mama D with locks and white locks in her hair, that was in New Orleans fighting on the front lines, fighting in the community, went to Capitol Hill, fighting for the people and the recovery of New Orleans. And she was a known activist there, and she passed away.
Mm.
So it's very eerie or very non-coincidence, because everything happens for a reason, that we met in that community a block away from the Addis Theater, organization called Teens with a Purpose, with an executive director named Mama D.
Wow.
With locks and almost white, the same as the Mama D in New Orleans, that we connected with. And we didn't only just connect with the community, we connected with the mayor of the city.
Nice.
We connected with the Office of Resilience, and we saw the maps and what's being laid out as they dealt with that. So not only were we shaping this whole comedy special, where we went into Newport News, we went into Hampton, we dealt with people in Portsmouth to bring everybody to the Addicts to watch this comedy special, to have you laugh, but talk about a serious issue. So that's what culminated, coming into that. We did it, during pre-COVID, and everybody showed up, 2 packed nights at the Addicts Theater, a VIP night, and just an open community night. And that place was packed, and people enjoyed it, enjoyed the fellowship, right there in the St. Paul's district.
Wonderful. Can you reflect back on some special moments during those 2 nights?
Yeah, it was just special to, as Kristen said, Kristen talked about when she said, she had to buy a kayak. It was just funny to make it laugh. Or Amina talking about, I went to Howard, I was on the swim team, y'all need to get up on that. Because the reality is that when it floods, we work with an artist called Mia X. Mia X was, yes, Amina. When she talked about she was on the swim team, because do Black people use it? Well, we do know how to swim. Yes. But when a flood comes, what happens? What goes on? And Mia X, we was in Newport News back in 2014 and 2015, and that was the thing that she talked about. She said there was babies in the water. There was snakes in the water in New Orleans when that happened. People was in the water for 5 days. So as she making a joke about being on the swim team, I don't know what that would have done for somebody for 5 days and learning how to float until rescue came, right? So we saying this in a joking way. A good moment where Clark from Chicago, he's talking about a part of filming filming this whole documentary and getting prepared for Ain't Your Mama Heat Wave. But he goes to a store, they stop filming, he goes to a store right across the street in that community, and there's gunshots. And, he tries to jump under a car to save himself. And I say that is because not only are we fighting for climate justice, but we're dealing with racial justice, and we're dealing with all the other things that are going on in our communities while we're trying to do so. So we're not just trying to do this issue and do that issue over here. We're trying to collectively do it all together. So just understanding that, sometimes people's like, well, we talk about climate change, that doesn't click. But environmental justice, we understand justice, and we know that we demand justice. And that's what we need to get. So how do we translate? Well, they're talking about climate change. They're talking about particular matter. They're talking about sea level. How do you talk about that where people can understand it and can relate to it? So that's why I said we use culture. And this is that comedy special that we use, Ain't Your Mama Heat Wave. Because this ain't your mama, she getting that older age. She got this heat wave. She need a fan. Baby, turn on the air. It's not that heat wave, but this heat wave that's coming in your community is a direct reflection of climate change.
How easy was it to get performers for this event?
Well, the Hip-Hop Caucus, we are a blessed organization. And I say that under the guise of Reverend Ewell and, like I said, Executive Director Liz Halfstead. We partner with a lot of different people, and people identify with what we're doing, and they want to come on and be a part. earlier, as you were scrolling down the Hip-Hop Caucus website, there was a video of Common, Trouble in the Water. Because in 2014, we released the album called Home, Heal Our Mother Earth, where Common was on it, Neo was on it, El Varner, Crystal Waters was on it. My girl Antonique Smith was on his album, Chocolate. And we did this album, we released it, and then we came back because of the Flint issue and made a video on Trouble in the Water with Common to highlight the issue that was going on in Flint. So we've been blessed with artists, whether it be from 2 Chainz, T.I., Charlamagne the God from Breakfast Club, Kiki Palmer, Amber Rose, to be able to get artists to be engaged in it. So it wasn't like a pulling teeth, but when people saw the creative ability as they was a part of the writing, it was easy for them to come on board, to join this conversation, to join this process. So we just have been blessed that a lot of people actually just want to join in this process and see where they can use their talents to help in this great work.
I always like to have friends recollect before, during, and after a project is finished. What did everyone feel like after that second night was complete?
Whoo! We're like, whoo! And I say that is because when you're doing a production,
yes,
as they saw the producer Elijah Kareem, this is not like no popcorn, get your phone out, we're gonna record this. There was a whole production, and as I said, the mayor of Norfolk showed up.
nice.
A pastor sent his congregation from Newport News. Now, mind you, this was a night event, and in the Hampton Roads, if you in Newport News or Hampton, you got to cross the bridge, go through the tunnel to come back onto the Norfolk side. So when you get off at 6, you ain't trying to go nowhere else but go home. You ain't trying to come back across the bridge.
Right.
People actually showed up, came there. So for us to organize and make sure that people actually got there. And we had a performance from the Teens with a Purpose to do poetry at the beginning. So it was beautiful to see all of the cameras that we had, the load in, because for everybody else, they got to come in, but we had to be there hours early to set up all the cameras, get everything together, make sure everybody got checked in. But we was relieved and we were joyous because it was packed and people loved it. They was excited. They had conversation. They wanted to take pictures with the comedians. We had a banner. So there was a lot of joy within the community. There was a lot of joy where we had it in that community, where a lot of the VIPs of the city came, and the community was together. So you had VIPs mixed in with the community. It wasn't like no special seating per se. We was all mixed in together as a family. It was a beautiful thing. So right after that, we went right to work to start editing and to get clips to show. And of course, COVID hit, but we showed this to some of the influencers, I think in January, so they can see it. And it was blessed, this year to be in the DC Film Festival, the largest film festival for an environment, and we actually, out of over 100 something films, we was like ranked number 3 as the top film that was enjoyed watching, which is a beautiful thing. So it was a good feeling, and even the people, the comedians that did a part, they learned a lot about the community, which we always want to make that connection, but they also learned themselves more about the environment, because they met with the mayor. They had the conversation with the mayor themselves. So the comedians were prepped. They met with the Office of Resilience. They saw the maps. They came into the community. They talked to the community members. We went and ate at Kristen's mama house and had some good meal and good conversations. So to see all that went into the production, to see the outcome and to see that the people enjoyed it, that warmed our hearts.
Beautiful. How did the collaboration come with the Planet in Focus International Environmental Film Festival? How did that come about?
Well, so one of our we would say team members, Mystic, she was working directly with introducing us to the film festival and the film world. So we did the DC Film Festival, and she said, I'm gonna reach out to some other ones. I'm gonna reach out to some other, and we start putting them out there, and that's people start to come. And so now we transition, and we got some other people working. Destiny is working at young Howard student is working at and putting this creative out there. And I think we haven't been in film festivals. We have the Hip-Hop Caucus films now. We have Think 100 Films.
Yeah.
We have Think 100 Activism. We have a Think 100 The Coolest Show podcast. You got to check out thecoolestshow.com. That podcast and talking about environmental justice, and they're going into film. So it is very interesting. So Mystic, being an artist, the female artist of Digital Underground, our artist herself, she understands the beauty of culture and visual arts, making videos, and how important that the story of this gets out. Because the narration of Ain't Your Mama Heat Wave is the bigger conversation. The bigger conversation is, how do we tell this global situation? It's not just in Norfolk, it's not just in New Orleans, it's across the country and literally across the world, where we have met with people from Brazil and South America, in the Amazons, in Mexico, and even in Canada. We've been to Canada and having these same conversations about environmental justice. And we've been in the divestment movement. Revenue, we just got back from Scotland in 2015. We was going to Paris for the COP21, the big international meetings around environmental justice and climate change.
Well, as we're starting to wind down the conversation, where does the Hip-Hop Caucus see opportunities to not only spread the message, but for action?
Well, we have, if you go to hiphopcaucus.org, you can find all of the platforms and the things that we're doing. And as I said, the Coolest Show helps get out about the environmental justice movement and the things that we're doing around environment, and just all of the different things that really sometimes protect, not only from we say free from the streets to the suites. So what is going on in local communities, what are going on directly in people's community, as well as what's going on Capitol Hill. So we want to know about the legislation. We want to know about the laws. We want to know what's going on globally, but we also want to know what's going on in the community. So the Hip-Hop Caucus, you can go there, you can connect to Think 100% and learn about the things that we're doing. We just recently, as we was getting ready to celebrate the 16th anniversary or commemorate the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, Ida hit. And so we set up an Ida relief fund. And we have already spent and given out over $60,000 in
Congratulations.
aid. Yeah, in aid to, and congratulations is good that the people came, because then we did with Yunajaha and Hip Hop 4, the number 4 foundation. They came on. We did a Hip Hop for NOLA to get people raising money. Had events in different cities virtually and live events to help people raise money for that. So we're not only just doing the climate work and having the conversation on the Coolest Show podcast, but we also doing our Respect My Vote campaign. We're in Virginia. We've done 4 events already. We got 2 more in Virginia that we're doing around Respect My Vote, because they always have an election.
Yes,
so at the same
one
time,
is one happening right now, is it not, in Virginia?
Well, we just had one with Teens
Yes.
with a Purpose this past Friday. It was a cipher. Young people perform, sing, rap. It was very good. And then we're going to have one next Wednesday in Hampton, and then another one on Thursday of next week, the 28th, in Norfolk, called the Respect the DJ. Ironing hip hop, but then also getting people registered to vote. So it's a beautiful thing, and we're going to have a screening, because right now the screenings are at the film festival. We're not doing public screenings right now, but they are at film festivals. But we're going to have a private screening in Virginia at a place called NOIR, NOIR, next week, and you can go to Hip Hop Caucus and find that on all social platforms.
Well, for those who are having the opportunity to watch us either live or the replay, I'm just showing the website here. that you need to go to hiphopcaucus.org, and all the great initiatives, Respect My Vote, Think 100, give you their latest actions, listen to the coolest show. And the name of the show is The Coolest Show. Just want to make sure. So look up The Coolest Show on YouTube. So definitely they're doing a lot of positive things and making a positive impact in the world. So what I'd like to ask you as a final conversation piece, what is Hip-Hop Caucus's call to action to the members of the Bipoc community?
You know, I would say this, you know, one of the things we say is can't stop, won't stop. And where you are, get involved, and use your power that you have. Not that we're going to give you power. Use the power of your culture to tell your story and to get involved in the movement. There's movement, whether you get involved with us, join and be a member of the Hip-Hop Caucus, get involved somewhere, and use your, as we say, cultural expression to shape your political experience. You know, so use your cultural expression to shape your political experience. How does that mean? Whether you sing a song, write a poem about it, or videotape it, use culture to help get the word out about the things that are directly affecting your community. So we have national initiatives, but we also are connected to people on the ground to help us know what's going on that's connected with people right there on the ground so we can get their stories out. So we also wanted to be this mouthpiece for the community. So if you have stories, you have things you want to share them with us so that we can help amplify the things that are going on. But we definitely would say just get involved, however that looks, whether you get a degree in environmental justice, where you get a degree in filmmaking, where you get a degree in law. Utilize your degree, utilize the knowledge or education that you have to help our people. Reverend Ewell always says this: it's not about the Republican or the Democrat. It's about helping our people. That's the bottom line. He don't distinguish between parties, male or female. It's about helping our people.
Be one.
Yep,
absolutely. Be one. Well, Terence, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for taking the time out of your positive, productive schedule.
No, thank you.
And as I said before we went live, your organization, you have a home here. Anytime you'd like to come on, we will make sure we make room for you, because
thank you.
You are doing incredible things for hundreds, thousands, and millions of people, not only in your country, but around the world.
Thank you.
So absolute pleasure. If you want to find more, we're just going to list a lot of things. If you want to find out about the movie, the website, Ain't Your Mama's Heat Wave. On the Instagram, what they call it, the gram. Ain't Your Mama SHW. On Facebook, just go to Ain't Your Mama's Heat Wave. Hip-Hop Caucus, hiphopcaucus.org. And if you're in the Toronto area, it is playing at the Planet in Focus International Film Festival from October 14th to the 24th. It is Canada's largest environmental film festival. Just go to planetinfocus.org and you'll get all the information that you need. Terence, again, thank you so much for an incredible conversation.
Thank you.
And I like to always say, remember, you and all the team and your families and loved ones, give yourselves grace.
All right. Peace.
Thank you so. All right. Peace, my brother. What a great conversation, folks. Epic. This has been a great time. And have a comment here. Great initiatives. You are all not only talking the talk, but you're demonstrating amazing leadership. And that they are. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone who watched today. I appreciate it. If you watch today live or you're going to watch in the replay, it's appreciated, not taken for granted. If you want to find more information about me, the best place to go is the website, thedrvibeshow.com. And also, if you are comfortable with it, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show either on YouTube or Facebook, because now we want to just notify you about the great epic conversations that are coming up. As always, I'd like to close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect, and remember everyone to give yourselves grace. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good.